Me that there was a young man named Elvis Presley that I was going to be working with. I didn't know who Elvis Presley was.
She kissed Elvis Presley. On screen. In front of the entire world. And the entire world lost its mind. Girls sent death threats. Fan clubs declared war. Magazines plastered her face on every single cover. Hollywood looked at her and saw the next Grace Kelly. Studios were fighting over her. Offers were arriving faster than she could read them. The trajectory was perfect. The future was certain. And then she was gone.
On Oscar Eve, the starlet who famously kissed Elvis, but who then turned Tinseltown away. She's about to be back on the red carpet, but where was she all these years?
No scandal. No breakdown. No failed film or public meltdown or bitter contract dispute. She simply stopped. Drove herself to a monastery in rural Connecticut. Handed back the gowns. The contracts. The diamonds. The career that literally millions of women would have surrendered everything to have. Handed back the ring from the man who loved her more than she would ever fully know. And she never came back. For 60 years the official story has been clean and simple and completely digestible. She found God. She chose faith. Beautiful. Inspiring. Deeply moving. But that version of the story leaves out the question nobody in Hollywood has ever been willing to answer directly. What was actually happening inside that machine? What was being done to that woman behind the smile? What did Dolores Hart see and feel and experience inside the most glamorous industry on earth that made walking away from all of it feel like the only way to survive? That is the story we are telling today. And by the time this is over you will understand that what Dolores Hart did was not just a spiritual decision. It was an act of self-preservation. Go back to Chicago. 1938. A little girl named Dolores Hicks. Born into a home already cracking at the foundation. Her parents divorce. Her father Bert is an actor. A theater man. More at home under stage lights than under any actual roof. Her mother steps away. And Dolores goes to live with her grandparents. Devout Catholics. A home built on prayer and silence and the deep unshakable certainty that something larger than any human ambition is quietly operating underneath everything. But her father's world keeps pulling at her from a distance. She watches him perform from the wings. Studies the way a single person standing in the right light can make an entire room full of strangers feel something completely real. She absorbs it. Files it away. Carries it with her to Marymount College where she begins taking small roles and discovering that she has something most performers spend their entire careers desperately searching for. She connects. Not just performs. Connects. A Hollywood producer named Hal Wallace sees it immediately. And in that single meeting the course of her life shifts permanently. He does not ask her who she is. He decides who she is going to be. New name. Dolores Hart. New image. New narrative. Packaged and constructed and presented to the industry before she has made a single frame of film. She is 20 years old. And Hollywood has already decided everything about her. 1957. The film is Loving You. Her co-star is a 22-year-old from Tupelo, Mississippi that nobody bothered to tell her about before she arrived on set. She did not know his name. Did not recognize his face. Could not understand why everyone around her was behaving so strangely. His name was Elvis Presley. Their chemistry was immediate and electric and completely impossible to manufacture. And in one scene. One single scene lasting only a few seconds on screen. Dolores Hart became the first actress to kiss Elvis Presley in the history of motion pictures. The reaction was unlike anything the studio had seen. Furious letters. Jealous letters. Threats from girls across the country who felt personally betrayed by a fictional kiss between two actors playing characters who did not exist. Magazines ran her face for months. And away from the camera something quieter was happening between them. Between takes they sat together and read the Bible. Elvis and Dolores. Two young people from completely different worlds finding unexpected common ground in faith while the industry around them turned their professional relationship into a marketing event. She returned the following year for King Creole. His darkest film. A deeper role. More complexity. More demand. And she delivered with a precision that made critics stop comparing her to other actresses and start taking her seriously as a force entirely her own. The press called her the next Grace Kelly. Not just for the beauty. For the poise. For the quality of stillness she carried into every room and every frame. Hollywood had its new star. And it was not finished with her yet. The films kept coming. Wild as the Wind. Lonely Hearts opposite Montgomery Clift. Where the Boys Are in 1960, which became a genuine cultural phenomenon and cemented her as the voice of a generation. A Tony Award nomination on Broadway in 1959. On paper it was everything. But here is what the controlled narrative has always glossed over. Every role Dolores Hart was being given was the same role. Sweet. Innocent. Wholesome. The good girl. The pure one. The moral anchor in every story built around someone else's darkness and complexity. She wanted more. She said so. She asked for roles with real depth. Real shadows. Real humanity. The industry smiled. Nodded. And handed her another version of the same character with a different name. Because that was the product they had built. That was the image that was selling tickets. And in Hollywood, when an image is selling tickets, the person behind the image does not get to want something different. She was not Dolores Hart, the actress exploring her craft. She was Dolores Hart, the brand generating revenue. And the machine did not care even slightly about the difference. Then came Francis of Assisi. 1961. And this is the moment that changed everything. The moment that the PR version of this story points to as the simple origin of her spiritual calling. The moment they have packaged into a clean and comfortable explanation for 60 years. But sit with what actually happened. Dolores was cast as St. Clair. A woman who abandoned wealth and privilege and everything the world offered her in order to follow a calling that made no logical sense to anyone around her. While filming in Rome, she was granted a private audience with Pope John XXIII. He looked at her directly. And said 4 words. You are Claire. Not you are playing Claire. Not wonderful performance. Not great casting choice. You are Claire. Those 4 words did not inspire her. They devastated her. Because in that moment something she had been trying to ignore for years stopped being ignorable. She was not performing a woman who gave everything up for faith. She was performing herself. And she knew it. She came home from Rome different. Not visibly. Not in any way the studio could see or measure or manage. But something fundamental had shifted underneath everything she showed the world. She kept working. Kept showing up. Kept delivering exactly what the industry needed from her. The Inspector in 1962. A Holocaust survivor. Her most haunting role. Her most mature work. But inside the question that had been quietly forming for years was now completely unavoidable. What is all of this actually for? She described Hollywood later as a machine. Said she was polished and packaged and presented. That every detail was managed. The clothes she wore. The words she said in interviews. Even the men she was expected to be photographed with to maintain the right kind of image in the right kind of publication. The applause was real. The contracts were real. The fame was real. But none of it belonged to her. A close friend suggested she visit a monastery in Bethlehem, Connecticut. The Abbey of Regina Laudis. Just as a retreat. Just to rest before returning to work. She walked through those gates expecting to find a break. She found something she did not have a word for yet. Silence that was not empty. A peace that did not feel like absence. Women living with almost nothing who were radiating something she had never once felt standing on a red carpet surrounded by everything. She came back twice a year. Every time she left, the sadness that followed her out of those gates was heavier than the time before. And then Don Robinson. This is the part of the story that will stay with you long after this video ends. He was an architect. Steady. Gentle. Quietly devoted in a way that had nothing to do with her fame or her face on magazine covers. Their relationship was genuine. Real. The kind of thing that is almost impossible to find inside an industry built entirely on performance and image management. He proposed in 1963. She said yes. And she meant it. Plans were made. A house. A wedding. A future that looked from every angle like the thing that would finally fill the emptiness she had been carrying for years. She filmed her last movie wearing his engagement ring. Come Fly With Me. A light comedy. Cheerful in tone. The last footage that exists of Dolores Hart as a Hollywood actress. And then the voice she had been trying to silence came back. Not quietly this time. Like a flood. Everything she had pushed down. The monastery. St. Clair. The Pope's 4 words. The silence that felt more like home than any studio lot ever had. It came back all at once with an intensity she could no longer outrun. She went to Don. Not to end things coldly. Not with a letter or a phone call or through a manager. She went to him directly. Sat across from the man she genuinely loved. And told him the truth. I love you. But I feel God is calling me. I cannot ignore it. If you love me, you must help me. What happened next is one of the most quietly extraordinary moments in the entire history of Hollywood. Don did not argue. Did not beg. Did not grow bitter or angry or make her feel guilty for a single second. He said, I always knew. Every love has its secret. And I knew what ours was. And then he drove her himself to the gates of the monastery. Watched her walk through them. And drove home alone. When the news broke, Hollywood genuinely did not know what to do with it. Studios were speechless. The press called it a publicity stunt. Insisted no rational person walks away from that career for a convent. Waited for her to come back. She did not come back. Inside Regina Loudis, the transformation was total and absolute. Red carpets replaced by silence. Designer gowns replaced by a plain habit. The adoration of millions replaced by the communal rhythm of 8 prayer services a day beginning at 2 in the morning. Gardening. Milking cows. Sewing. Managing livestock. The woman who had kissed Elvis Presley on a motion picture screen learning to make cheese in rural Connecticut. She professed her final vows. Took the name Mother Dolores Hart. And eventually rose to lead the abbey as prioress. Responsible for the well-being of every sister inside those walls. She owned nothing. Kept nothing. Wanted nothing that the industry had spent years convincing her she needed. And Don Robinson. The man she left at those gates. He never married. Visited her every Christmas and every Easter for decades. Was by her side when he died in 2011. What began as a romance became something the entertainment industry does not have a category for. A love so genuine that losing its original form did not diminish it. Only transformed it into something that lasted the rest of both their lives. In 2012 something happened that nobody expected. A documentary about her life called God is the Bigger Elvis was nominated for an Academy Award. And Mother Dolores Hart walked back onto a red carpet. Not in couture. Not in diamonds. In her habit. A nun standing among movie stars at the Oscars. Calm. Unhurried. Completely at peace in a room full of people performing their version of success. She was there not for vanity. Not for nostalgia. To raise funds for the Abbey's restoration. She needed money for the walls of the place that had given her everything Hollywood could not. That image. A woman in a religious habit standing on the most glamorous red carpet in the world, completely unimpressed by all of it. Said more about what Hollywood actually is than 60 years of acceptance speeches ever could. She is in her 80s now. Still at Regina Loudis. Still rising before dawn. Still praying 8 times a day. Still tending the grounds of the place she chose over everything the world told her she should want. She remains a voting member of the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences. Receives films each year to watch and consider. That small thread connecting her to the world she left. Not out of nostalgia. Out of genuine love for the art that first showed her what a human being in the right light saying the right words can make a room full of strangers feel. Her autobiography is called The Ear of the Heart. Read that title slowly. The ear of the heart. Not the voice. Not the performance. Not the image or the brand or the controlled narrative. The quiet interior place where the truth lives before anyone else gets to shape it into something more marketable. That is where Dolores Hart has been living for 60 years. Here's what the official story has never asked out loud. What does it say about Hollywood that the most honest thing Dolores Hart ever did was leave it? What does it say about an industry that takes a 20-year-old woman, renames her, repackages her, decides her identity for her before she has made a single film, Cast her in the same role over and over regardless of what she actually wants to do with her talent. Manages her clothes and her words and who she is photographed with. Fills her schedule until she is running on empty. And then calls it opportunity.